Thank you, Federica, for these nice words. Thank you for organizing this meeting. I have to say that you look much younger.
It's them.
Yes. Now, 3 years later, 3 years after not being anymore the High Representative, blah, 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 you look much better. I'm sure it is the ambience and the fantastic job that you are having here. One of the best jobs one could imagine. Thank you to all of you. I congratulate to all of you for having the extraordinary chance of studying here in Bruges at the College of Europe. I am sure you are aware of how lucky you are. Here, Bruges is a good example of the European garden. Yes, Europe is a garden. We have built a garden. Everything works. It's the best combination of political freedom, economic prosperity, and social cohesion that the humankind has been able to build. There's three things together. And here, Bruges is maybe the good representation of beautiful things, intellectual life, well-being. The rest of the world, and you know very well, Federica, is not exactly a garden. The rest of the world, most of the rest of the world is a jungle. And the jungle could invade the garden. And the gardeners should take care of it. Should take care of the garden, but they will not protect the garden by walls, by building walls. A nice small garden surrounded by high walls in order to prevent the jungle coming in is not going to be a solution, because the jungle has a strong growth capacity and the wall will never be high enough in order to protect the garden. The gardeners have to go to the jungle. The Europeans has to be much more engaged with the rest of the world. Otherwise, the rest of the world will invade us by different ways and means. Yes, this is my most important message. We have to be much more engaged with the rest of the world. We are privileged people. We built a combination of these three things: political freedom, economic prosperity, social cohesion, and we cannot pretend to survive as an exception. It has to be a way of supporting the others, facing the big challenges of our time. So thank you, Federica, for hosting this experience, this pilot program of a diplomatic academy. And I am happy, by the way, it's going to be in the net, it's going to be transmitted. So let's take care then. Let's take care, because there are things that can be said in a closed doors and in inside working, and maybe cannot be projected to the jungle. To the jungle. Let's stay in the garden, but be aware that the jungle is listening to us.
Afterwards, we'll have a separate garden.
Good. Then, as the diplomatic says, one told me, diplomacy, you have to say the truth. No? You cannot lie. Well, formally, you cannot lie. You have to say the truth. You have to say only the truth, but not all the truth. Not all. But if we want to engage frankly, honestly, to discuss about the real problems and looking for solutions, then you have to tell all the truth. But we'll do it later. Today, let me tell you that I am happy to participate in what can be said, and you said that, a moment of creation, to be present at the creation. And to be present at the creation is some words that were said many years ago by one of the most famous diplomats, George Kenner's memoir. And this memoir I still consider it the best insider account of framing the U.S. policy in the post-war post-war, I mean the post-Second World War. Now we are definitely out of the Cold War and the post-Cold War. The post-Cold War has finished with the Ukrainian war, with the Russian aggression to Ukraine, and we are certainly living also a moment of creation of a new world, because this war is changing a lot of things, and certainly is changing the European Union. This war will create a different European Union from different perspective. There are people who says that this war means the end for the European Union to have a foreign policy because we are following blindly the US. This narrative exists. Yesterday in the plane I was reading nice articles explaining this approach. And from my side, it's just the contrary. This war has been an occasion for the European Union to be more assertive and to push for the creation of a European stand from the foreign policy side and also from the military and defense perspective. Because you know very well, Federica, because you have been before me, that we were not only the foreign policy builder, also the security and defense builder. This post is a combination of what could be a foreign minister and a defense minister, both. And that's a very good thing because more than ever, foreign policy and defense policy goes hand in hand. Here we are launching this European Diplomatic Academy. This is one idea that is in my mind for many years ago, much before becoming the High Representative for Foreign Security Policy. This idea has been turning around the Parliament, the Commission, Florence, Bruges. It's clear that we need it. And thanks to the support of some members of the European Parliament, and I want to make a special mention to one of them, to Nacho Sanchez Amor, a good friend of mine who is not here because he is acting as a member of the Parliament. Thanks to the strong support of the European Parliament, that has been very much instrumental on ensuring the funding to create this pilot project, we finally see a certain number of European young people, young diplomats, that want to become European diplomats, fully fledged European diplomats. Because today what we have is a kind of a mix of diplomats coming from different member states' diplomatic services. And that's good because we need to be on board, to have on board everybody. But at the end, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing to be a national diplomat and European Union diplomat, because the European Union is something different of each one of the member states. It's the aggregation, the consolidation of a union which is on the making. I have diplomats working with me from all over Europe. And I am happy that here there is not only European Union member states, but people coming from Ukraine and other candidate countries. And I think that the participation of people coming from Ukraine and other candidate countries is essential. It was a good idea. Look broader. Bring people that are still not in the Union, but they will be one day in the Union, because they will play a crucial role on the future of the European Union. It will not be the same with or without Ukraine. So let's have them on board from now, in order to build this mixture of ideas, identities, capabilities that makes the European Union work. Thank you for the direction of this program. Thank you also to the Florence Institute and the Maastricht Institute for conducting the feasibility study, which will mark the way in order to make this pilot project a permanent reality, because our purpose is to establish a fully fledged diplomatic academy, a permanent one, in order that the people who work in the European External Service have first the knowledge that require this activity. Someone working for us has to understand how the European Union works. And it's not easy. Even for me, it's not easy. They have to know what does represent this club, because at the end we are a club of members, states that put together some, not all, of their capabilities, resources, and political engagement. There is the Council, there is the Commission, there is the Council of the European Union, there is the Council of the Union. Who makes the difference? No? People who work for us has to understand, first of all, how do we work? The complex structure, institutional structure of the European Union, and it's not something that one could imagine that comes from the sky. It has to be learned. And here in Bruges, you have a long experience on teaching how the European Union works. This first course is taking place in a time of exceptional change. We are in a moment of creation. We live in a world of power politics. The rules-based system that we defend is challenged like never before, and every interdependency, which was supposed to be a good thing, preventing the war, now is becoming weaponized. Well, the rules-based system, and here we have Putin saying, who decides which are these rules, challenging the system directly. And thanks God the system reacted very well yesterday with the vote on the United Nations, with more than 140 people rejecting the illegal annexation, the forced annexation of a part of Ukraine into the Russia Federation. And we are happy, and I am very happy of this result. It was a lot of work behind it, a lot of reaching out with many people in order to be sure that we were above the 140 line, which was the result of the first vote. But if I can say, and even if there is an streaming, I have also to say that I am worried because there were too many abstentions. When 20% of the, more or less 20% of the world community decided not to support or not to reject the Russia annexation, for me it's too many. It's too many. We are happy because the bottle is quite full, but it is a little bit empty. We have to continue working in order to make this number of people who looked to the other side that didn't want to say clearly that they reject the annexation of parts of Ukraine in Russia. We have to continue doing our diplomatic work in order to convince. I know that diplomacy is about values and also about interest. And among these abstentions, there are a lot of calculations on interest. No, I cannot vote against Russia because I am too much dependent on Russia. It's not just a matter of being convinced, it's a matter of calculation of the interest. And that's life. Everybody do that. We do. But too many abstentions. We have to continue working diplomatically in order to make the world reject still more clear this war against Ukraine, which, as I said, is changing Europe because it's sending shock waves around the world, creating challenges related with high prices of energy, high prices of food, here at home, but I can tell you much, much, much more in other countries, in Africa and in Asia. And then there is the nuclear threat. And then there is the nuclear threat. And Putin is saying that he is not bluffing. Well, he cannot afford bluffing. He cannot afford bluffing. And it has to be clear that the people who support Ukraine and the European Union and the member states and the US and NATO are not bluffing neither. And any nuclear attack against Ukraine will create an answer. Not a nuclear answer, but such a powerful answer from the military side that the Russian army will be annihilated, and Putin should not be bluffing. This is a serious moment in the history, and we have to show our unity and our strength and our determination, complete determination. Yesterday I was in another meeting discussing with other kind of people about what's happening and what we are doing. But for me it's clear. It's clear that we have to continue supporting Ukraine, and we have to continue looking for diplomatic solutions when possible. By the time being, there are not. But one day or another, there will have to be. And we have to be ready to do as much as we do today supporting Ukraine on the peace negotiations, because the world needs this war to stop. Because the consequences of this war, not for the Ukrainians who bear the heaviest cost, not for us that we are worried by the electricity bill, or are we going to have gas this winter, but millions of people around the world, for them is much more difficult than for us. You go to Somalia, for example, you will see the consequences of the war in one side and the climate change in the other side, and both together create a dramatic situation. Can you imagine that today in the Black Sea there are more than 100 ships loaded with 2 million tons of grain? Can you imagine 100 ships, 100, not 10, 100, one besides the other, loaded with 2 tons of grain waiting to be controlled in order to go through the Bosphorus and reach the world markets? People are waiting for them. And for some people, they will come too late. And people will die of hunger because the grain is being stopped, waiting for a control. So I have to make a call here to everybody engaged in this control procedure to speed it up, because on the other side of the Bosphorus, people are waiting to eat. As dramatic as it is. So be aware of the world in which we are living, how difficult it's going to be, the work of diplomats, and you will be, I hope that when you will be in office, the war has already been over. I don't expect the war lasts as much as you have to take care of it. But after this war, it will become a period of instability, and we will have to build a new security order. And how do we integrate Russia, the post-Putin Russia, on this world order is something that will put a lot of work to the people thinking on the diplomacy and how to practice and to implement it. I think this is a good time, a good moment to create this academy. And I count on you, Federica, and I count on the intellectual capacity of Bruce, which doesn't need to be proved, in order to train the future European Union diplomats. You are very close to Brussels. You have in Brussels a lot of expertise, a lot of people who know how to do it in practical terms, but they need intellectual support. They need more and more understanding. They need academics capacities and professional capacities being brought together. And this is about this experience. Today, there is not a clear difference between what is the diplomatic activity and what is the sectorial activity of policymakers. Everything has an external dimension and an internal dimension. Who is in charge of it? The Ministers of Foreign Affairs, because it's something that happens outside, or the sectoral responsibilities because it's something that is related with very concrete things that happens at the same time inside and outside. Migration, climate change, and the fight against disinformation. Both, each one of it has an external dimension and internal dimension. Cybersecurity, it's an external problem or an internal problem, it's both. And I've been Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I've been saying that my colleagues, all of them are also Ministers of Foreign Affairs, because they travel, they talk with the colleagues outside the country, they discuss about climate, they discuss about migration, they discuss about disinformation. The Minister of Foreign Affairs has to be reinvented. They have to work in a different way, because today everybody is a Minister of Foreign Affairs. Because the foreign is internal and the internal is external. There's no longer a clear boundary. The internal dimension, you know that, is familiar for you, no? Who takes care of the internal dimension and who takes care of the external dimension? You are in charge of the external dimension, yes, but there's not a clear border between one thing and the other. Well, some cases it's internal, clearly, and the Ministry of Interior has a lot to do on dealing with migration inside and in the borders. But before the borders, on the sources of migration, this is an external relation issue. And climate change is also another good example. It's a global problem, so it has to do with the external world, but it's at the core of all internal policies. And that's why I said the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has to reinvent themselves in order to be able to deal with this new situation with a lot of competitors inside the policy-making structure. You will have to learn it. You will have to learn it, and for you to be part of a better diplomatic activity and capacities, we need to build institutions. You, Federica, before me, and Lady Ashton before you, and even Javier Solana in the prehistoric times, I mean, before the treaty that created this two-head job, we have been, and I am working on institution building. And that comes to the reference to Jean Monnet, which is unavoidable. People matters, institution matters much more. People goes by, institutions remain. And if there is a big difference between Europe and the rest of the world, well, the rest of the world, and understand me what I mean, no? Is that we have strong institutions. The most important thing for the quality of life of the people is institutions. The big difference between developed and not developed is not economy, it's institutions. If we have a judiciary, a neutral, independent judiciary, most efficiently, if we have systems of distributing the revenue, if we have elections which provide a free choice for the citizens, if we have the red lights controlling the traffic and people taking the garbage, if we have this kind of thing that makes the life easy and secure, institutions, that's what matters. And it's very difficult to build institutions. We can build a road. We can go with a bulldozer and money and workers, and we build a road. I cannot go to emerging countries and build institutions for them. They have to be built by them. Otherwise, it would be a kind of neo-colonialism. And the big difference between us and the important part of the rest of the world is we have institutions. And we have to work institutions, to build institutions. And I would like very much to finish my mandate having built institutions, having built a stronger European Union diplomatic capacity and stronger European Union diplomatic service. And I know that what makes the difference is the quality of the human resources. Because an institution without people making it work is an empty building. It's the combination of institutional structures and people committed and able to make it work. An independent judiciary needs independent judges. Otherwise, it doesn't work. An efficient diplomatic service needs rules, needs organization, needs resources, needs procedures, but need people. People not only committed, but able to fulfill its commitment. And this capacity doesn't come from the sky. It will come from experiences like this, Federica. I have a lot of hope on what you are going to do here. It's a pilot exercise that has to become a permanent activity of training our people. You are the first generation. You are the trailblazers of a process, and I hope that hopefully many others will come. And when the years come and the European Diplomatic Academy will have grown and established itself, then you will be able to present it as a moment of creation. And you will remember that it started here in Bruges in a day like this one. Thank you for preparing the program. I think it's a very good program. Nothing similar in scope and content is available today in Europe, I am sure. Nothing with this broad scope, with the possibility of going to the border, of going to the offices, to talk with the policymakers, to stay and work in a privileged place like this. I don't think there is another experience like this. And I know that you, Federica, has been able to attract the best European Union politicians, experts, practitioners, and diplomats to lecture and to share their knowledge and experiences with you here. I am jealous. I would like a lot to be you. I would like a lot to be able to sit and learn and to enjoy the possibility that it's being offered to you. So you have a strong responsibility. Use it. It's a unique opportunity. And when you have the chance of being as privileged as you are, you have the duty of delivering, of engaging with all your intellectual capacity, non-sparing efforts, study as much as you can in order to learn as much as you need and make this experience a successful process, the starting point of the production every year of generations of European diplomats that they don't have anymore in their mind, their country. Well, they will always have their country in your mind. But the process of sublimation, going up, going further of our national identity to really enjoy having another identity, which is the European one, which is not contradictory with the previous identity. I am always saying the same thing. I am Catalan, I am Spanish, I am European, and there is no contradiction between these three things. By the contrary, they enrich me. I am a much better person because I can speak different languages, I can understand different situations. My identity has different layers, and the more layers I have, and the better coexistence among them, a better human man or woman am I. And the European experience is about that. It's the integration of different identities in order to make them possible to live together, not in a confrontational way. The history of Europe has been the confrontation of identities. The Catholics against the Protestants, the French against the Germans against the French, the Spanish against the British. We have been able to overcome this battle of identity. Today, being French or German is not something that puts people one against the other. And identity is today the real battlefield. Identity is coming back as a powerful matter. Remember what someone said, is the economy stupid? Well, now it's identity stupid. Today, it's identity what matters. Identity can be manipulated, can be presented as something exclusive. My identity is incompatible with your identity. It's either you or me. And this either you or me brings to war. And the beauty of the European experience is you and me overcoming the heritage of the past and offering to the world the recipe for peaceful coexistence, cooperation, integration, and development. You will be one engine of this multiple layer identity building. And believe me, Europe is a good example for many things. And the world needs Europe. The world needs Europe. My experience of traveling around the world is that people look at us as a beacon. Why so many people want to come to Europe? Are there flows of illegal or irregular migrants going to Russia? Not many. No, they come into Europe, but for good reasons, So keep the garden, be good gardeners, but your duty will be not to take care of the garden itself, but the jungle outside. Thank you.